All right. Hi, everyone. I am Shani Zimmerman, and I manage Octopus Strategic Partners. Joining me today are Jen Gutman, Octopus Director of Social Strategy, and Andy Mullings, co-founder and solutions architect over at Blueprint X. In today's webinar, these two are going to be talking all about leveraging social engagement data inside of Marketo and why it's especially important for your marketing stack to be communicating during these trying times. I do just want to remind everyone that you are on mute. If you have any questions at all, please feel free to drop them in the Q&A box. We'll be sure to get to them after the webinar today. So thank you both so much for joining me today and helping the rest of the B2B marketers on the line better understand their social media engagements that they're generating from their social efforts, and being able to, of course, leverage that data outside of social and inside of marketing automation platforms like Marketo. Jen, I want to start with you, and I want to take this really from the top of the funnel. What type of content are B2B marketers sharing, or what should they be sharing?
Yeah, so what's interesting about that question actually right now, hey, there we are. So it's okay.
Bit of a delay, sorry.
Okay. So when asking about what type of content B2B marketers should be sharing on social right now on the top of the funnel, I think we can all agree that right now, the top of the funnel, middle funnel, bottom, it's like all out the window, right? We are encompassing all components of the funnel right now as we go and adapt into the messaging and marketing that we're doing now in this time and beyond. So with that said, I think it's important to think about content that is, first of all, on demand, right? That can be accessible at any time. And why, right? Schedules are up in the air. The workday has completely changed. For some, we're at home homeschooling the kids. For others, we're walking our pets. Others starting the morning off with a gym routine. The day has changed and no 2 days are alike. So by creating on-demand content, such as podcasts or webinars, for example, you're going to allow your prospects, your customers, and your audience on social media to be able to view your content when it's relevant for them, when they're focused, when they can, and still be engaging and still being able to send out messaging. Another component I think of, when it comes to what type of content you should be sharing, I think don't underestimate the power of your corporate blog. Now is the time, I think, to be blogging. We have a lot of great content on our corporate blog. And so when we promote that on social media, create our posts, you're essentially bringing your audience to your blog. But now is also the time, right? Because they're looking for helpful tips and tricks, which leads me to point two. But make sure your blog is really, you're tagging different articles, you're recommending different articles within your blog to keep them not only engaged, but filled with relevant and information. Because I think in these times, people are still looking for information. I'm not necessarily saying that now is the time to hard sell or do aggressive marketing, but I do think that staying relevant and being informative is going to be helpful, and a blog can be a very central part of that. The third type of content that I think is very relevant is curated content. And I can speak a little bit to what we've been doing at Octopus with this specifically. B2B messaging, I think, in the past few weeks has been a little bit chaotic. We used to know exactly what message is going to generate what type of engagement, and when we should post it. And what we've been using curated content to do is kind of gauge where our audience is in terms of topics that they want to speak about. So we've actually built a campaign called Corona content, for example. And all of that content is curated third-party content around what's happening in the industry, what's happening in the world. And we've actually had a lot of clicks on that. And from there, we were able to really understand our audiences on social and where they are. So that helps us kind of go into point four when we start to gauge where and what our audience is engaging in with that third-party content as well. Maybe we're seeing, for example, that they're clicking on more lighthearted content, right? The memes, be funny, just being able to relate and be human. And what we're also seeing is that the more human approach that we're taking is the more engagements we're getting. So for example, on Instagram right now, we are engaging with the employee takeovers hashtag. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it. And I think for B2B companies, Instagram can always be a challenge. Where do we start? How do we get involved? And now is actually a really good time to create, if you haven't already, an Instagram strategy, because with all of your employees working from home, this provides your audiences on social, specifically Instagram, to see a different view of your company and get a new perspective. And having your employees take over that channel, we're seeing be very successful because, again, it's lighthearted or it's not about Corona. So I definitely would recommend content in terms of getting your employees involved. And then the fifth, and I think this is the constant messaging that, however many webinars you've attended or blogs you wrote or written or read about, is that being empathetic right now is probably, put a gold star next to that when you're writing your content, because that's really what is going to bring us into that next channel in terms of being able to speak with our customers and our prospects. We're all human at the end of the day. And if we can create that empathetic, customer-centric content to resonate with your audience, we're seeing that does lead to meaningful conversations, right? So maybe they're not buying today, but the meaningful conversations we're able to have and those meaningful engagements, they do go a long way in being able to humanize the brand. And as you can see at the very bottom, we have here a disclaimer that make sure all of your content is adding value. And I think that's very important to remember, that as you're creating all of your content, right? Of course, we want it to be able to provide value, but in today's times, when people are really being bombarded with tons of messaging across social media, you really want to make sure that you're adding value. And if you're not adding value, then maybe think twice about posting it, or don't just speak to speak, but really have a meaning to your content. This kind of leads me into my next component, right? Where we are seeing you're posting all of this content, and what do we take away from it, right? How are we going to measure all of this in the new time, this new content, okay, a webinar at 10 a.m. is not maybe any more popular because people are not at their desks, but how do we measure this? And what we're seeing, right, there's three types of metrics, I think, when we're looking at social media that as B2B marketers, we need to focus on. So the first are metrics that bring business value. What do I mean by that? These are metrics that are going to allow marketers to confidently demonstrate the value that social is bringing and how social is impacting the company's bottom line. This, I think, for B2B marketers is like, put a star next to it, underline this. This is number one, because if you're not impacting the company's bottom line, are you even doing your job as a B2B marketer? All of that can be measured through what we call social conversions, and we'll get into that in a moment, and link clicks, to really make sure that we're driving value, we're driving leads into the pipeline and through the funnel, wherever it may fall. The second type of metric that I think we can't forget about, and as B2B marketers, there's always this great, interesting debate if these metrics are even relevant for us, but these are metrics that I like to say spark meaningful interactions. So what do I mean by that? These are the metrics that oftentimes people have joked about. They're the fluffy metrics. You may have heard them as the vanity metrics. They're not as important. I tend to disagree. I don't think you can rely only on one of these three. I think you need to encompass all of them based on your marketing goals. But these vanity metrics, or insightful KPIs, if you will, I think are important, because in a time right now, especially when we're trying to really understand not necessarily our new audience, but the new messaging we need to put out, these metrics can really help us go about understanding our audience better, understand what they're engaging in, help us as marketers be able to create that content. So again, I think that these social engagements are important to our marketing strategy, and we should be measuring them as well. And third, I strongly believe B2B marketers need to be measuring metrics that help gain credibility. So I've had a number of conversations with many B2B marketers in the past few weeks, and we're all laughing, but like secretly sweating, because we all know that at the end of the day, marketing and budgets right now, it's not a great situation. And we all are like, oh my gosh, marketing is usually the first to go. So being able to align your marketing activities, and specifically your social media activities, with being able to show that you're impacting the bottom line, is going to help you gain credibility. So when you go to that meeting to get budget, secure budget, those metrics are really going to help you. And hopefully we can flip the script so marketers aren't the first to go, and really change that kind of atmosphere there. Okay, so with that, I think there might be a delay on my side. Apologies.
There's a bit of a delay, but we'll roll with it. We're good.
Okay, cool. So with that, when you're taking a look at your marketing objectives, right? All of your KPIs really need to be built behind your marketing objectives. But when you're taking a look at that, and the whole reason why we're doing this webinar is that social media, it's it's a critical engagement channel. It's third behind email marketing and website page visits. So without social data, without understanding all of these different metrics, your organization is completely blind to the third largest customer engagement channel, and that is social media. So the whole reason we want to measure this and make sure we're understanding it is to help our buyers through the journey and engage with them when they need to be engaged with. So what does that actually mean, right? So currently right now, for you Marketo users, right now, let's say that one of your audience members, you're taking a look inside and you see, oh my gosh, I got a lead. This is great. Where did they come from, right? The golden question. So you take a look and you see that this specific lead, they did a search on Google and they get to the blog, they fill out a form and they convert, right? So your SEO team is completely cheering. You as a social media marketer are probably like sweating a little bit because you don't know how you're able to justify where that lead came from, but you're pretty sure your social media marketing efforts had something to do with that. But what's actually happening in Marketo, what's actually happening on social media is that perhaps on day one, as you can see here, that your lead had actually clicked on a link on the Wall Street Journal that mentioned your company that you tweeted. And then about a week later, they liked a Facebook post. So you're doing pretty good. And then 2 weeks later, you see that they clicked on a LinkedIn post. And only on day 21, from all of that social engagement where they maybe first came in contact with your brand, did they do that Google search that SEO now got the credit for. So in reality, most leads are engaging with many different social media touch points before converting. And we want to know about that. And these are the types of journeys that we're going to be able to bring to our leadership to really gain that credibility, to show that social media is that critical engagement channel. So just to kind of sum up on the marketing side when it comes to social media, right? So we're getting tons of data all the time, and data is really important. We're getting data from email clicks and opens, website visits, our CRM data, and all of that combined with our social data is really going to be able to give us a lot of benefits from our marketing, right? We're going to be able to build more effective communication strategies, personalize a buyer's journey based on social activity, which is huge, accelerate qualified leads, easily attribute leads to social, and of course, improve the customer experience. Because when we can understand from social media what our audiences are interested and then tailor those different, let's say, lead nurturing campaigns to those interests, we've pretty much struck gold. So I'm going to actually let Andy talk about the gold. So Andy, take it away. Or actually, you're below me, so down here, take it away.
So Octopus has done the hard work. Our content's working and our social channels are up and running, but how do we get the leads from social across to sales? So I'm going to start first with the technical steps, and we put together 7 fundamental steps that you should be aware of, that you need to have in place to maximize the usage of those social channels. So the first step is to make sure that you've got a landing page and form set up, obviously to capture those leads coming in from social. And you can do this in Marketo. You know, if you guys have used Marketo before and you've got your landing page and email templates in place, that's going to be a pretty easy step for you guys to set up and get that up and running. The second piece is obviously setting up a campaign or nurture ready to help qualify those leads. So as Jen demonstrated, you know, we're not just looking for those touch points on social, we're also looking to touch those leads as they come into the system with email content or web content. And it's also key that that content is in line with the type of messages that you're pushing out on social media. So we're telling a story, we're going to continue that story when the leads come from the social channels into your Marketo platform. We also want to make sure that we've got some sort of scoring mechanism or lead scoring set up to score on the social activities, but also the activities that we're running through our campaign and nurture. Key step, of course, is ensuring that we've got the Octopus, Marketo, and CRM integrations in place. One thing that I will tell you from working with Octopus, the integration is really easy to use and it's quite simplistic to set up. So if you're not a technical person and you are interested in Octopus, you know, don't worry about that integration step. You know, you'll be able to pick that up, and with a little bit of support, you'll be able to get that in place quite easily. We also need to support the sales team. So what we would recommend is that you set up some sort of alert. You know, that can be done by email or task with using Salesforce. And obviously those alerts should contain some key information. So not just the information about, you know, the name and the company of the individual, but, you know, also include some engagement information. Let's get the salespeople excited about that lead when they see that alert come through, so they want to follow it up as quickly as possible. And then the final piece, and probably the most important piece at the moment, is also to ensure that we've got some sort of attribution model in place to report on our, you know, social channel, and we can then let the business know and our senior management team, you know, what value is social bringing. And this is super important right now. You know, like Jen mentioned, you know, budgets are being cut in the current climate, and we need to justify the spend, you know, across our social channels. We know social can deliver, and we need those attribution reports and set up to show the business that they're adding value and, you know, bringing a 10x or 5x or maybe even better than that. And one thing that you guys might not have been aware of is that Octopus is the only platform that automatically syncs engagement data such as clicks, likes, shares, comments directly to your Marketo platform. Now, it doesn't really get much better than that. And I'm also going to show you what that looks like in the platform as well. So if you guys are familiar with Marketo, what we're showing here is the Marketo activity log. So if you click on a lead record or prospect record, you know, this activity log will pop up, and it will show you exactly what that individual has been up to, what links they've clicked on, what web pages they've been to. And if you're using Octopus, it's also going to show the social engagement. So what you can see here in the orange section is that they've clicked on a social link, and it's indicating it's a link on the LinkedIn channel. And if we double click on that, it even opens up a more detailed window where we can actually see the link that the individual has clicked on. Now, if we click on that link, it's even going to take us to the content, and we can share that link with the sales team, so they've got insight into exactly the articles and content or blogs that our prospects have been engaging with across those social channels. Now, we've been doing this a long time, and we also wanted to include some expert top tips, some things that you should do, which is going to add further value. So obviously by using social media activities, you can segment your Marketo database, you know, according to what they've been interacting with. Now, the benefits of segmentation are that we can then obviously continue to target, you know, individuals and prospects with the content they're interested in, look to qualify them further. But we can also use this segmentation tool in Marketo for personalization. And we would highly recommend that you do use personalization within your, you know, nurture campaign that's supporting social. You know, recently in Forbes, I've read a stat, 40% of US B2B businesses say they've purchased something more expensive than they planned, you know, because of personalization. You know, me personally, you know, during this time lockdown, I've been using Amazon a lot. They use a lot of personalization. They're certainly a market leader in the personalization space. And I often find that I end up purchasing something that, you know, I wasn't going to purchase, but it followed me around and I ended up putting it in the basket in the end. So, you know, if it works for you personally and you end up, you know, clicking on those adverts, then of course it's going to work for our customers as well. Also, by understanding the social engagement within Marketo, we can create something called interesting moments. Now, not everyone may be familiar with an interesting moment, so I'll very quickly explain what they are and how they work. So, you know, across web, social, email, and all of the different channels that we may be deploying through a platform like Marketo, you know, we've got hundreds of different, you know, interactions. But what we can do with interesting moments is we can home in on, let's say, maybe 10 to 20 of those interactions that we see key. So we pushed out maybe a white paper through our social channels, and maybe we've invested, you know, a lot of money in that particular white paper, and we want to make sure that when somebody clicks on that, we know it's a super important piece of content for the market right now. We want to attach an interesting moment for that, so it's obviously a key activity, and then that interesting moment can actually be fed into sales, so the sales team can see, hey, you know, this particular prospect is engaged in one of our key activities. And this is going to then help that sales individual further qualify that lead and hopefully close the deal sooner as well.
Delay. Sorry, guys.
And finally, you know, we talked about the benefits to sales, but, you know, I think it's also key in the current climate that we talk about the benefits to sales that, you know, social, you know, Marketo, working together can bring. And obviously we're bringing email opens, click data, website visits, social data, CRM data all together, and we're feeding that, you know, in the right direction towards the sales team, so they can have an intelligent conversation with an individual, you know, about the different products that they're interested in or the interests that they've shown, you know, in our offering. Another key thing that's often not talked about enough, I think, that, you know, social can bring in terms of value, is more opportunities for sales to make contact with individuals. And again, during this lockdown, it's even more important that we have, you know, more options available to us. And what I mean by that is, you know, currently, you know, in terms of a salesperson, I think we think about telephone and email as our sort of two channels, and maybe face-to-face. But, you know, a channel that I use often is, you know, contacting people on LinkedIn, you know, sending them a message, looking at who they're connected with. Are they connected to individuals that I know well, that I can get an introduction to? So using that data from social, we can get those social handles, we can do a little bit of research, and we can even reach out to them using social rather than traditional methods like telephone. Also, that insight from social, you know, providing more information, knowing that they've actually clicked on those 3 articles before, you know, they engaged on the email content. Again, like Jen showed on that great slide, which shows all of the different touch points. Now we know all of that information, we can actually accelerate the sales qualification process. We can use that information to, you know, identify what that individual is interested in, have a relevant conversation, and hopefully convert that individual into an SQL or, you know, a close one piece of business. And then finally, you know, attribution. As we mentioned, you know, this is super important at the moment. We need to justify every penny that we're spending in the current climate. And obviously using these tools together, we can easily attribute revenue to social.
That was really, really helpful, guys. Thank you so much again for joining today. We have a handful of questions, so if it's all right with you, I'm just going to go ahead and I will allocate them.
Yeah,
just according to the person, but feel free for, you know, both of you chime in. I think that this one is more relevant for Jen. A very high percentage of our social is paid. Is Octopost a good fit, knowing that?
So I will tell you, Octopost is always a good fit. Whether you're doing, you should be doing paid, right? I mean, we have to be hitting our social from every aspect. When it comes to measuring paid, I know that for Octopost, we do focus more on the organic, but I definitely think it would be worth having a conversation offline, just because, again, social media and a strategy, when you're combining all tools together, and like I said, Octopost is good for whoever, and even if you're using paid, we just don't focus on measuring that. So I definitely think if you're looking for a paid platform, you probably want to be a best in breed and stay with the best in breeds. Marketo, Salesforce, Octopost are all best in breed. I'm pretty certain that when you're doing paid, usually you want to stick to the organic social networks like LinkedIn itself to measure those. But we can certainly have a conversation offline. I'd be happy to do that, or anyone from our team, and we can walk through together with you just to make sure that Octopost would be a good fit. So hope that helps.
Definitely. And another one for you, Jen, just now, really, with everything going on, just now getting started with social. Good plan, bad plan, any recommendations for if you didn't have a social strategy beforehand and just jumping into the deep water now with the crisis going on?
So my question to you would be, why are you waiting? What has taken you so long? But because we're all supportive of each other and we're in it together, let's be real, right? No one's going to come to the table today and say, oh, wow, my social strategy, let's scale back. That's not happening. If anything, we're plowing forward and we're plowing fast. I like to joke around with my colleagues and saying that, you know, back in the day when I was in college, our professor shared with us a quote or on the first day of class, and he said, welcome to the degree, studied media and communication. Welcome to the degree that in 4 years when you graduate, everything will be obsolete. So in 4 years from now, who knows, maybe we'll be dealing with something else. But today, absolutely relevant. Getting started can definitely be a challenge. And what I would think about is think about what you're looking to measure. And that goes back to that KPI slide, right? So maybe when you're first getting started, maybe you're looking to do social for brand awareness. Maybe you're looking to do social to impact the business's bottom line. Even employee advocacy could be an interesting place to start, because employees can go ahead and take your content and amplify that reach, making the impact much greater and allowing your content to get further. So there's many ways to get started with social. And I definitely think if you're not doing it, again, I'm sending you like a lifeline, and we're going to talk about why not, because it doesn't matter if there's a crisis or no crisis. You need to be on social. That's where your prospects are. It's where your audience is. I don't know, Sam or Andy, sorry, if you have anything to add there. I know you work with a ton of clients in terms of, helping with strategies. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Something that we're certainly recommending to clients at the moment is, we had a discussion about this, when we were doing the dry run on Tuesday, was the podcasts. We're seeing a lot of engagement in those on-demand podcasts at the moment, and our CEO has been doing a lot of those with different people from different organizations talking about different topics. But I think that that on-demand content right now, and pushing out more posts on social media, whether it be through blogs or through the social channels themselves or through your website, as well as podcasts, they're the type of things that we're certainly recommending when we're talking strategically, with our customers.
Yeah, and just to chime in one more to think out loud, I love strategy, so feel free to, I love talking about it, but even curated content, it can be very overwhelming, I think, when you're getting started on social media, and where social media calendars for B2B require a lot of content. And I think that can be very overwhelming if you're just getting started. So don't be afraid to go for the curated stuff, right? There's always interesting articles that are being pushed out about your industry, the different verticals that you may be speaking towards. Start sharing some of that content, and it will definitely give you some leverage inside of your own channels, because at the end of the day, there's a stat, it's a 60-40, 70-30, it's a little debated, but more or less they do say that you should be posting more curated content than organic content from your own brand. So getting started with social, that gives you a great opportunity to put feelers out there again, see what your audience is resonating with, see what's relevant. It gives you time to create content on the back end, and you'll have a channel that's slowly starting to grow presence.
Yeah, and I think testing and optimizing is key as well. You've got to look at what's working and follow those trends. What works for one business doesn't work for every business. So it's key to take those learnings, but also then, look at your data, look at the metrics, and optimize and improve along the way.
Definitely. Andy, I think that this one's going to go to you. We spoke a lot about nurturing based on social engagements. The question here is, currently social isn't included in my Marketo lead scoring models. Any thoughts on how I can incorporate social engagements and interactions into those models?
Yeah, so obviously, we showed using Octopost that is possible. Those social engagements will appear, in Marketo, and you can use them to score upon. But I think when it comes to lead scoring, it's really key that we follow a process, and it has to start offline. It's key to get the marketing team together, with maybe some individuals from sales and social, and, work together to, agree that lead scoring matrix and that criteria. So everyone's aligned, everyone's on board with it. We're not going to pass a lead to sales and they're going to say, hey, you scored 50 points for someone liking a post. That's not what we're looking for. We need to make sure that everyone's aligned and the scores are in line, with the, what's valuable and what the sales team see of value. I think once we've got that alignment, we can then go away and build the model. But another key thing about lead scoring is, I always say to customers, it's never going to be right. We've seen during this current climate, things are changing. There's a lot more emphasis on online at the moment. So, it's now's the time where you actually would apply maybe higher scores to the online, in engagement across different channels. So it's key also with lead scoring to include, review points every quarter or every month, where you're constantly optimizing that model. So the leads that went to sales, did we manage to qualify them? Okay, how can we improve that lead scoring model? So you're constantly adjusting it and working it, and obviously factoring in those social engagements as well. So I think it's key, to go through that process, when building any lead scoring model. And of course, with Octopost, we can include those social engagements too.
Fantastic. I have two more questions, which was good because I do want to be conscious of time here. Jen, for you, There's actually 3 more questions, but one of them was already answered within the chat. So I'm going to start with this one. We have a large social team, and an issue we face is making sure that we have a process in place to get content from ideation to publishing. It becomes even more of a challenge when we're managing multiple campaigns. Can Octopus help with that?
Ooh, wow. Okay, let's talk strategy. Okay, so the answer is yes. Octopus can certainly help with that. And actually I can speak to this pretty honestly, because during this current climate, we had to rethink our entire social media messaging and what ended up happening. So it was basically starting from scratch. You know, back in December, we sat and we had this whole great plan for Q1 and everything was posted out and ready to go. And I was so organized. And then this lovely crisis hits and I had to get rid of everything. So what I ultimately ended up doing was I thought about, okay, let me think of the different topics or the different ways that we're going to go ahead and, I guess, engage with, or topics with, that we know that Octopus product has, right? So we kind of mapped out, and by we, I mean me sitting at my desk with my laptop. We're sitting and kind of mapping out, okay, and we're taking a look at all the different types of campaigns, and it can be tricky on where to get started. So we started to do some campaign mapping, and we actually made a matrix, and we mapped out the matrix based on all of the different types of segmentation that you could actually kind of nurture your leads with Octopus, in terms of, okay, so for example, we have an employee advocacy product. So we're like, okay, we're going to have content about employee advocacy. We talk a lot about publishing. Now, those 2 categories alone, they can have curated content or they could have organic content. So we basically literally started just mapping out this big matrix, and I can share it with anybody who would be interested and explain it further. And from that matrix, we actually had come up with 20 different campaigns, and those 20 different campaigns translated into a way where we would house all of our content and then feed those campaigns basically into Marketo. So anybody that, let's say, would engage with a piece of content about employee advocacy, that campaign, we'd be able to go ahead and we'd understand inside of Marketo, we would, the naming conventions would match, and we would be able to set up nurturing campaigns for that specific engagement or lead that engaged inside of Marketo, so that person would continue to get information or relevant content about employee advocacy. That was quite a big question. Was there any other element of that question that I missed, or?
No, I think you definitely nailed it, but I think in the overall idea is that yes, Octopus can help with that, even if it's a large global company, if it's enterprise, if there's cross campaigns, if there's regional campaigns or language-based campaigns, the platform Octopus can be segmented according to what it is that you need and how you need to measure and how you need to cross these campaigns over.
Cool.
Yeah, sorry, Andy, did you have something there? Did I just imagine something? Oh, just imagining. So we have time just for one more question. And Andy, this one's for you. From your experience, what is the hardest part of integrating a platform like Octopus to Marketo?
Yeah, great question. I actually did the integration was it yesterday or the day before, so I can certainly give you my insight on the Octopus to Marketo integration. So I think first of all, it's, you know, we're a services partner, and we often do, you know, integrations for, you know, Octopus or Marketo, you know, but when it comes to actually, you know, working with Octopus, you know, the integration is pretty straightforward. And, you know, if you read the documentation that's online, you know, anyone can actually do that integration themselves. It's really not that difficult. The hardest part is there is a small change that you need to make to your DNS control panel to enable the tracking links. So you will have to reach out to the individual who looks after that. So, you know, if you are planning to do the integration over the next couple of weeks, you know, reach out to people in your organization and, you know, find out who looks after that, you know, DNS control panel, and, you know, make sure that you send over, you know, the relevant guide to them and make sure they understand it. If they don't, then of course you can reach out to the likes of Octopus or Blueprint, and we'll help you with that step. But it really isn't that challenging. It's one of the easiest integrations that I've worked with. You know, normally with clients, we've focused less on the integration and more on the other fundamental steps that, you know, that we discussed earlier.
Yeah, amazing. All right, guys. So I think that is it for the time today. And I just want to say thank you very much again to the two of you for sharing these points and for everyone that was able to join us today. We will be continuing this from the expert series over the next couple of months, just to make sure that we're providing you guys with the maximum resource and information that you need to be able to continue successfully using social during this time. If you have any questions at all for either myself, Jen, or Andy, please feel free to reach out to us. This deck will be sent in a follow-up, so you don't need to memorize these emails today. And in the meantime, I hope everyone stays healthy and stays positive, and we will reconvene on our next From the Expert episode. Thank you all so much. Take care.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Jen. Thanks, Janie.
Thanks, Andy. Bye.
Of course. Bye.